Jim, Terry, and Luke choose to approach the face, instructing Phil to repair the return module and depart once finished, whether they return or not. Jim, Terry, and Luke pass through the opening in the face, which seals shut behind them, cutting off all radio communication with Phil. Inside, they quickly realize the air is breathable and remove their helmets. They step into a vast three-dimensional projection of the solar system. Within this display, Mars appears vibrant, blue and green, clearly illustrating a story. Long ago, Mars was home to life, but a massive meteor strike devastated the planet. A tall, slender red entity emerges behind Luke, Terry, and Jim, continuing the visual narrative. The Martian population evacuated aboard spacecraft, dispersing to distant galaxies, though one vessel was deliberately left behind. Into this ship, Martians uploaded their DNA records. That same vessel eventually reached Earth, carrying the first single-celled organisms. Over millions of years, those organisms evolved into modern humans. Life on Earth, in fact, originated from Mars. The enormous face on Mars was placed there intentionally, meant to be discovered one day by humans so they could learn their true origins. Jim asks Luke to clarify the secret he mentioned earlier, and Luke shows them an image of the massive metallic face. It turns out to be the famous face on Mars, once observed by satellites and dismissed as a natural mountain formation. Luke explains it was positioned deliberately for them to find. Jim asks about the strange signal Luke's team detected near the face. Luke explains that after a year of analysis, he discovered the signal's physical structure forms the image of DNA. He believes it is a self-portrait created by the beings who built the face, a declaration of who they are, a signature of their existence. Terry points out that the DNA image is incomplete. The final pair of chromosomes is missing, meaning it is not human. Later, while preparing for the journey back, Jim spills some candy, reminding him of a past conversation with Phil. Suddenly, Jim realizes the DNA image is not a signature at all. It is a test. The beings want humans to complete the final chromosome pair, proving their humanity. The face attacked Luke's team because the radar's radio waves were interpreted as an incorrect response to the test. Jim explains they must recalibrate the radar to transmit the correct signal, filling in the missing chromosomes. The others hesitate, but Jim convinces them that failing to act would make the entire mission meaningless, rendering every death pointless. The same ship that once carried life to Earth had brought the original, single-celled organisms, which eventually evolved into humanity. Earth's life began on Mars. The face exists so humans could one day return and understand where they came from. Earlier, one of the rovers had detected a strange mountain with a reflective summit. Analysis suggested it might be ice, possibly concealing a massive water reserve. A message was sent to the World Space Station, where Woody, Terry, Phil, and Jim were stationed, informing them of the plan to investigate the formation. As Luke and his team approach the mountain, they hear an odd signal through their headsets. Using a radio wave radar, they discover the mountain is metallic beneath the dust, not ice. Luke insists the readings must be wrong and orders them to move closer and increase the radar's power. The moment they do, a violent energy pulse erupts from the mountain, disabling all equipment. A massive tornado forms, moving with apparent intelligence. It engulfs and kills Sergei, Renee, and Nick, while Luke survives. When the storm subsides, a colossal metal face stands where the mountain once was. Back on the World Space Station, An emergency meeting is convened after the energy surge from Mars is detected, and nearly all communication is lost. Terry and Luke later escape just in time, reaching the return module moments before Phil departs. Meanwhile, Jim is lifted into a smaller vessel and placed inside a chamber. Water begins filling the compartment, and Jim panics. He holds his breath, but as the water rises completely, he realizes he can breathe within it. Memories flood his mind, his life, his friends, and his wife Maggie, as he prepares for a journey to a new world. As Terry, Phil, and Luke exit Mars's atmosphere aboard the return module, they watch Jim's ship streak past, carrying him toward another galaxy. Luke watches silently, wishing Jim luck, knowing his friend is finally fulfilling his destiny. Earlier, the refueling module had been farther away than expected. Woody chose to fire a grappling cable, using all the fuel in his jetpack to reach it, securing the line so the others could survive. He succeeds but overshoots and is left drifting in space with no fuel. Terry is devastated and insists on rescuing him, but both Jim and Woody know it is impossible. Terry tries anyway, but Woody begs her to stop before she dooms herself too. When the cable proves too short, Woody realizes she will sacrifice herself if he doesn't act. He removes his helmet, ending his life so she will turn back. Once again, Jim explains the face attack Luke's team because their signal was interpreted as the wrong answer. They must transmit the correct DNA response. Despite their fear, the team agrees. They send the radar via rover and transmit the completed DNA signal. A glowing white doorway opens in the face. Luke reiterates his findings about the DNA signal, its structure, its meaning. Terry again notices the missing chromosomes. Later, Jim spills candy once more and confirms his realization. It was a test all along. Earlier, Jim had arrived at a party where everyone welcomed him warmly. Afterward, Jim, Woody, and Luke talk until Maggie's name is mentioned, casting a shadow over the evening. Luke learns Maggie was Jim's wife and a fellow astronaut. Together, Jim and Maggie devoted their lives to the dream of reaching Mars, but illness took her before the mission. Luke insists they deserve to go more than anyone. When radio contact is restored, Phil warns them of an approaching storm and urges them to leave. Jim realizes the face is not just a monument, it is a ship preparing for launch. Terry and Luke begin to depart, but Jim stays behind, explaining this was an invitation to meet their ancestors. It is his purpose. Terry and Luke accept his decision. Later, Luke, weak and traumatized, attacks Jim, believing him to be a hallucination. Jim proves his reality by reminding Luke of the book he reads nightly with his son Bobby. Luke calms down and explains how he survived for a year by growing plants. He says he wasn't spared by chance, but for a reason, to uncover the truth. Back on the station, a damaged transmission reveals Luke's condition and the death of his team. A rescue attempt fails, leading to disaster during atmospheric entry. Forced into space, the crew reaches the refueling module and eventually lands on Mars. At the old base camp, damaged equipment remains usable. Jim discovers plants thriving in the greenhouse, proof of Luke's survival. Luke emerges and attacks him. Earlier still, Luke had spoken with his son Bobby before leaving Earth, promising they would read the same book together every night, even across space. Months later, Jim, Woody, Terry, and Phil near Mars. Phil playfully builds DNA models from candy as Jim arrives and eats them. Woody informs Jim that the Saturn probe will soon provide the data needed to land.